This past weekend, I had the incredible opportunity to sit down with one of the sneaker design goats, Stephen Smith. If you're not familiar with who he is and you're watching my channel, I can almost guarantee that you have at least a couple of his pairs in your collection.
At the time, I was still head of design with Ye. Taylor Swift shows up in my 550s, and you know the.
Did she not know that they were yours?
Oh God, I don't think so.
Oh my god.
So there's that constant battle between those two, and then here she is wearing a pair of sneakers designed by Kanye's head of design. I thought it was pretty funny.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Very
that is
ironic.
Stephen Smith is responsible for some of the most iconic sneakers of all time. Starting out at New Balance, he designed the New Balance 574, the New Balance 550, the New Balance 996, to name a few. During his time at Reebok, he designed the Reebok Instapump Fury. He also worked at Nike for 10 years and got to work with people like Bill Bowerman and Tinker Hatfield. And during that time, he designed some of Nike's most iconic silhouettes, like the Nike Zoom Spiridon Cage 2. Not to mention the Shox Monster and the original VaporMax Air Unit. He's currently working at Crocs, creating some incredible stuff, which I can't show you, but it's coming out soon and it looks amazing. But where a lot of sneakerheads probably found out about his work was through his work as the head of design at Yeezy. Stephen Smith has had a hand in almost all of the Adidas Yeezys that have released. He worked directly with Ye, and he's responsible for one of the most iconic sneakers of all time, the Yeezy 700. But like I was saying, this last weekend I got to sit down with him on the Shoes Off podcast for almost an hour and talk about his entire sneaker design journey. Couldn't cover all of it in just an hour, but if you guys want to watch the entire conversation with Stephen Smith, and I've made sure to link the Shoes Off podcast at the top of the description below. But because a lot of our conversation did center around his time at Yeezy and designing the Yeezy 700, I decided to actually drop a video on my main channel right here of those parts of the conversation. Because honestly, as someone who was around for the release of the Yeezy 700 and just the mayhem that happened around that time, it was so interesting to hear about it from the behind the scenes point of view. And I figured you guys would probably want to hear those stories too, stories that I've literally never heard before. So sit back, relax, and enjoy an unfiltered conversation with Stephen Smith about his time at Yeezy and creating some of the most iconic and best-selling sneaker silhouettes of all time.
First of all, this is incredible to have you on. We have a legend, an absolute legend, Stephen Smith, designing some of the most iconic footwear of all time. In fact, on foot, you've got truly one of the craziest samples I've ever seen in my entire life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is one of the pre-production friends and family wave runners. They're beat to crap. I mean, I wore them pretty much every day for 7 years. I had to glue the toe back on. Wow. But you can see the suede is very different than what's on the production ones. It's much nappier. The other one's a little bit smoother, and the nap is much lower on the suede. The Iro material is a much nicer grade of leather. And even just the overall shapes and everything are different than the production ones. But I thought I'd wear something special for SneakerCon LA, you know, since this is between here and Portland is where I designed them with Ye. So
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be excited to see, like, these haven't released to the public as is.
Yeah, you know, I did switch out the laces because they had the light butter yellow laces, and I changed them to a reflective one.
I love the reflective. What was the design process like for this? So what was did you have an initial brief for it, or was it something that you were just like, I'm going for it?
It's a different process than anybody understands, you know? He was like, I want to do a dad shoe, and I'm like, what are you talking about, you know? And he goes, just design one, or, you know, design an old school running shoe and make it futuristic and make it retro. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. So I just started sketching, and he's like, yeah, like that, you know. And that was in person. And then I would come down here Tuesdays through Thursdays. So I went back up to Oregon, and then he had Ding, who was a young kid out of school, with him there, and Ding kind of photoshopped it a little bit because Ye was like, do this, do that, make the color like that. Then they'd send it to me, and I'd be like, what is this? And I'd redesign it and then send it back, and then they photoshopped it, send it back to me again, and I would redraw it. And that final process was 48 hours of going back and forth, and out of the end of it came this thing. And it was really interesting because I didn't understand what he was asking me to do. And because everything else was like, the Roshi was big, it was all simple, 350, it just dropped, so very simple. Right. And this thing was old school with lots of bits and pieces, but it still looked like nothing else. As we were working on it, I revised it to have what's become known as the Stephen Smith tip that kind of came from the Fury and some of my early New Balance designs. on it. So it has my signature to it. It has Ye's signature. It's kind of this first hybridization of our DNA together to create what would become the modern language of Yeezy.
Right.
And again, when we first showed it to people, like, oh, that's not another 350. What is that thing, you know? And since when it came out, it was a huge success. And a lot of people now consider it the definitive Adidas Yeezy.
Absolutely. I pre-ordered it when the pre-orders first dropped back in 2017, and I was so excited about it. It was one of those shoes that at the time, I think at least from a sneakerhead point of view, I was making YouTube videos about sneakers, and I mentioned that I pre-ordered it, and people were like, the reaction was so split, but then as soon as you got it in hand, and as soon as people saw the videos of it, it was like an immediate like, wow, this is something different. And it was right when like, it was such a different, like you were saying, such a different shoe for the time, and it literally created a trend that hasn't gone away.
Even the color blocking is like...
Well, it was funny, you know, when before I started to work for him, this article came out, I think it was in High Snobiety, where they called me the godfather of dad shoes. And I was kind of pissed because they didn't tell me what they were going to call the article. They just said, oh, you want to do an interview with you about your career. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, godfather of dad shoes? What the? I do high-tech running stuff and, you know, performance. And I was kind of upset with it. But it was the final thing where he was looking for somebody to be his head of design and work directly with him. And he's like, that's the guy I want.
That's incredible.
So the article that I was upset about is the one that like sealed the deal that he told Adidas, get that guy, that's who I want. And so anyway, you know, you never know. Some of these negatives can easily become a positive, and you don't really know where life will take you with it.
Absolutely.
And then ever since, the thing has retained its status and value. And the thing that was fun is at the time we were talking about creating this thing, he and I had these conversations on time and the relativity of time. You know, the past is the past, the present is the now, the future is what we want it to be. Let's build the future that we wanted. And it was funny, it was that idea of timelessness of some of these things in design, and you go back and you look at this shoe now and like, when is it from? You know when it dropped,
right?
But aesthetically, when is it from? It could be from the 70s, it could be from the 90s, it could be from the future, but you know when it was created,
right.
But it's in the now. And it was kind of cool because it was almost like an aesthetic reflection of those conversations. And you look at it, you're like, well, of course it's 700. It's always been.
Right.
Even though it came out 2017, right?
Yeah.
So it was kind of fun to interject that philosophy into the design. And after we were done, he's like, you know what I did? I'm like, what's that? He goes, I made you design your New Balance if you still work there 35 years later. I said, yeah, you kind of did. You know, because that's what he was after, was that vibe, because the New Balances were just starting to gain in some popularity, right, and that whole dad shoe vibe. And, you know, we kicked it into overdrive. So
absolutely
kind of fun to, you know, continually change the culture of the industry over the years from those early New Balance shoes that I did. That I always thought was funny when they did that article. You know, they took the picture of me now. It said, right, Godfather of dad shoes. But, like, I designed those shoes when I was the 22-year-old punk rocker with my spike hair and fuck you attitude, you know? So it's very funny because it's the total contrast and opposite as to who the expectation was of who created this thing,
right,
you know?
Right.
The conformist dad comfort shoe done by the rebel, go fuck yourself punk rocker, you know? So to this day, I'm still, you know, straight edge punk rock. No drugs, no alcohol my whole life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I think it's probably why I don't look my age.
You look great.
You
look
know,
great.
so.
What was the first shoe that you worked on that came out, and what was your reaction of that when you first saw it in hand, like you first saw people wearing it in public?
I think about it's probably the 996 at New Balance. That shoe, I ran in the 990 in high school, and then the 995 was just coming out. And then when I got there, that was the very first thing I touched. Was I did some perf pattern ideas for the tip in the front on the 995. So when I got this job at New Balance, I was like, wow, I get to design the shoe I run in. How cool is that? And at the time, I was only the second designer in New Balance's history. There was another guy, Kevin Brown, who was a year older than me. They had hired him the year before. And the two of us was the entire New Balance design team. We designed everything there. And he kind of focused more on some of the basketball and women's training style. So like he did the Worthy Express, which is another really cool shoe. Brownie was a super talent. And we just, people think it's like this big team, but it was just the two of us. Like, what do you want to work on? I said, I don't know. I ran track. Why don't I do the running shoe? Okay, you do that one. And I said, you want to do the basketball? Yeah, I'll do the basketball shoe. And that's how it worked. And again, it's kind of exciting. So you say about the first one, but the thing that's really kind of mind-blowing to me, and the ALD guys gave it a new life, but the 550 is amazing because I designed that one when I was 23 years old. Wow. And to see that thing come back stronger than ever. Yep. And there's a really cool guy in New Balance England, Sam Pierce, and he's in charge of all the vintage reissues. And so he always reaches out to me like, did we get it right? Are the materials good? Is this how you intended it to be back then? And so it's a really nice friendship with, I would say partnership, but it's not even that because there's no business side of it for me. It's a friendship, and I they're like your children. You want them to present your children in the best way possible. So when they reintroduce him, it's really nice that he reaches out to me. So those two have been really cool.
Did they change anything about the design of the 550s for the re-release of it?
No, it's perfect. It's nuts on.
Same materials, same
everything.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah, it's cool to see it. And it's funny, you know, when I left New Balance in '89, I had all the prototypes and sample colorways and everything because we sampled in size 9 and I was a size 9. And I went to go work at Adidas, and I'm like, I can't have this New Balance stuff. So I had a lot of friends who didn't go to college or didn't have good jobs. They worked in a gas station or a supermarket. I gave them each bags, like hefty bags of all my New Balances. And
wow.
I don't have any of them, which kind of sucks because today they're worth a fortune. Hopefully those guys still have them.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of samples.
That's
probably.
Incredible, yeah.
Yeah, colors that were never made. I mean, just rad stuff.
It's really cool seeing samples and seeing some of your work and sort of seeing your design process and your ideation from where it started to sort of the finished product. And that's one thing I was really excited about seeing the samples on your feet. Like you really do see some of your thought process through the materials, through even like you were talking about the laces. It's really, really cool to see that.
Even the change, like how they changed. And I want to ask, why was the materials changed on the production run? Was that money? Okay.
Save a little bit. If you notice, every drop of the Wave Runners, the material changes a little bit, and they take a little bit, they squeeze a little more profit out, dumb down the materials just a little bit. You know, that's Adidas and what they chose to do. And, you know, it's part of why there was some abrasion in the end of cheapening the product every time, because there was a level of quality that he wanted to maintain and that I wanted to maintain in it, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And they were always kind of dumbing it down or cheesing it out. Like the originals were all made in China in one specific factory, and the guys at Flight Club last night handed me a pair, and I flipped them over, and they were made in India. I'm like, when did we make them in India? And it's not while we were together. It was that last batch that Adidas dumped.
Like that last retro of the last re-release of it. Did the materials change from so for the original colorway? Did the materials change each release, or was it like maybe a worse cut of suede or a worse cut of whatever?
I think they tried to maintain the materials. The problem comes in with the color requests, and that some materials won't hold the color as well. So there's a few things that changed up, but mostly all the 700s were pretty much the same materials.
Gotcha.
How do you feel like when you design a shoe, you get the sample and it's perfect, then the production run, you know, they change the materials for cost? Like, as the designer,
it kind of pisses you off because you're like, that's not as nice as what I wanted it to be, you know? And they're like, we need to just squeeze a few more pennies out.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, for God's sakes, then raise the price. That was a cool thing, you know. Everything was very simplified, and the like I said, the 350, the Roshi. It was cheap, minimalist construction, and then this thing came out with all these pieces of these high value materials. And I was going to, yay, this thing's going to cost a fortune. What are we doing here? He goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We'll price it. He goes, just make it and we'll set the price. And that's what we did. And it was a different way of working, you know, because everywhere else you're under like a recipe or a constraint. And this was freedom. Like that burden was removed of worrying about the price.
Right.
And it was liberating, because like, we're just going to make the best thing ever, and then he'll price it.
That's incredible.
And yeah, it was completely different. And you know, now that I'm with Crocs, they've kind of turned me loose to do the same kind of thing. Like, just go create and we'll figure it out after.
Yeah.
And it's nice that a company's receptive to that mentality of, you know, that free creation, because they can see how successful it was,
Right.
and want to get a part of that success for their brand and help grow it, which is great. It's very unique within the corporate world.
Would you say that your design freedom now is significantly greater than it was when you were at New Balance on that nimble team? Like, would you say that it's gotten, or back then, where they give you like, we need a running shoe,
And they just let you go.
let you go? Yeah.
You definitely had price points and a target and all of that. It was just different. It was good because the industry was smaller and not as developed. So there was a little bit more freedom, but you're still within the corporate structure. And at the time, we thought they were so conservative. But it was performance-based. Now we have, I think Nike was responsible for this, of bringing in the seasons, like in an apparel industry, of like fall, winter, spring, back to school, holiday. And then it got down to like Halloween packs and all of that. Back then, we had a model and it was time to update and refresh.
Right.
Or a new material or a new process came out that we could make it better. Then it was time to do a new one. It wasn't like, oh, every year we have to do a new one. We're like, oh, there's a better suede or a better midsole material or a better process. Let's upgrade the shoe. And that's a different mentality than the way the business is run today. And that was refreshing too, because I think it shaped how I work, of newer and better. You wouldn't do it unless you could make it newer and better, not just new and different.
They're not like planning obsolescence like they are now. It's like you're trying to create the best product possible. I love that.
At
That's
that
incredible.
moment in time. And I think that mindset shaped these products. So like for him, I made the best shoe I could at that moment in time. And time is told that it was the right thing, right? Because here it is. It's this timeless classic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think it's a mindset and how you create.
That makes sense. When do you think that shift was, at least in footwear design, when it went from trying to create the best shoe out there and having things, I mean, Birkenstock's still around now where you can literally have the sole replaced, things like that. When did it switch from that sort of mentality to this current, like, we got to have a new Jordan out every year, we got to have a new whatever out every year? Like,
I think it's just as the business grew and became more profitable and bigger, you just have to feed the beast, you know, and I think that's one of the problems Nike has to wrestle with right now, is they became the beast. They became like General Motors, you know? You go buy a Chevrolet, it's a white appliance car that you get from a rental agency.
Right.
Other than the Corvette, even the Corvette's kind of spotty in its design in places. There's nothing that's passionate or like, I gotta have that car. It's like, oh, I need a car. I might as well get this thing. I know it's gonna work when I start it, maybe.
Right.
Hondas are more like that, though, where you know it's going to be reliable. And I think they're at that point where it's reliability as opposed to excitement and passion, and I got to have it. And so I think that's been another key ingredient where, like, I got to create something so compelling that the kids got to have it, right? But I want to make something so cool that I would want it myself. Not designed for myself. There's a difference.
Right.
Because a lot of designers who end up being mediocre because they design for themselves. And it's like, you're not me, but I as a really good designer, I needed something you want.
Yeah.
Because I'll get what I want,
Right.
but I got to get your money, and I got to make you happy with something that you feel you got a great value out of.
Right. That makes sense. So when you're starting with a new project, does your design process start with sketching? Does it start with modeling? Like, what's your general flow?
So I start with a loose sketch, and then I either detail it out or I jump to making. So with Yeezy, with Ye, I had a small shop at home with sewing machines and different glues and processes and things. And then I had access for a while to Adidas sample facility, so I could do some molding and various things. So I just go hand make the first ones myself and bring them down to him. And that in itself is very unique in the industry, because a lot of people don't know how or don't know what to do when it comes to making something. And to me, I like feeling the form as I'm building it, and then get it, the feel of the materials and how it pulls, and that can affect the shape that you get it just right. And I like to do that. So there's a picture of Bianca in these white furry boots with the Vultures merch on. Like, I handmade those boots for her at home. Yeah.
I know for us, we were both into footwear. We actually met in industrial design school back in 2010. And I think the reason we both were interested in design was your work and others' work. It was the footwear. It was the sort of the product side of fashion. I think is what we were really interested in. And
well, it was interesting because the stuff was performance-based, and it made its way to fashion.
Yeah.
It was funny, the Pump Fury, when I did, and he's got on the BBC collabs right now, because I saw him. You see your stuff wherever you go. That's the other satisfying thing.
I feel like you see your stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the coolest things too. A lot of people are driven by money.
Right.
My legacy is my art, and I made accessible art, and I think that's one of the coolest things. I can look around here, and I can go, oh, look, there's one I did, there's one I did, there's one I did, there's one I did. That kid's got them on, that guy's got them on. And that, to me, is more satisfying than money.
Right.
Because those will live forever above and beyond me. They've become larger than life. And normal artists, you have to go to a gallery or go to a museum. I mean, my stuff is on anybody, anywhere in the world. And that itself is more rewarding than money to me. I mean, I might be a weirdo, but that's more rewarding. And I always want to go thank everybody. Like, thank you for appreciating my design. You have your New Balance 550s on. Do you like? Oh, I love these. They're the most comfortable. I'm like, thank you. And they're like, why do you care? And I'm like, well, I might have designed them before you were born, but, and the 550 is still one of my favorite funny stories of, at the time I was still head of design with Ye, Taylor Swift shows up in my 550s, and
Did she not know that they were yours?
No, oh God, I don't think so.
Oh my god.
So there's that constant battle between those two. And then here she is wearing a pair of sneakers designed by Kanye's head of design. I thought it was pretty funny.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Very
that is
ironic.
That's incredible.
That's
Oh my gosh. So how do you feel about all your shoes kind of having almost not a second life, but like have the staying power? Like, you have so many silhouettes that are still incredibly popular to this day. I mean, that probably is incredibly fulfilling, because
arguably more popular today.
I know, that's what's crazy. I wish I got a penny for every pair. Not that the money's important, but it would have been nice.
But why not? Why not?
I could have had a second house and another car, but it's all right. It's pretty cool. I always tell people, I never sat down and designed this thing and said, oh, this is so iconic, it's going to be sold for 35 fucking years. I just did the right thing at the moment in time, and it turned out it was. And it just, I don't know, like I always say, I got a gift from God to create these things, and I want to share it. And that's what was so cool about working with Ye, above and beyond all the New Balance stuff. It gave me that platform and that opportunity, and he empowered me, right, to make greater product, and it was good. And Crocs is doing the same thing, and Hey Dude, so it'll be some exciting things coming from Crocs very soon.
How do you feel about footwear design currently? Like, how do you feel about modern footwear design?
I think we're in a weird spot where we were such a catalyst in Yeezy of pushing the envelope and doing new things and creating disparate looks to what the market was at and resetting the marketplace.
Right.
And I think without us there, it's gotten kind of in a malaise and not too exciting. I think things need to come in and kind of shake it up again.
Yeah.
Whether that's me through Crocs or whatever. Even Nike needs to step up their game Somebody needs to, because they kind of got lazy, and Hoka and On and brands like that were able to creep in and steal their market share. Right. So, you know, we need a strong Nike. We need a strong Adidas. You know, obviously we need a strong Crocs, but we need those brands to be strong to elevate the level of product to compete, right? Because if there's no threat, there's no reason to move ahead. And, you know, at Yeezy, we took these quantum leaps because every time we came out with a new style, if you look at it, it's not derivative. We created individual art pieces that were accessible by the kid who wanted it. Right. The 700 looks nothing like the 500, looks nothing like the 450, looks nothing like a 750. That's what was so cool about it. But you look at it, and because of the DNA that he and I infused in it, you immediately know it's a Yeezy without any branding. It didn't have a swoosh to be lazy about. You know, the swoosh is kind of like, oh yeah, it's Nike, it's got a swoosh on it. You know, it's like a comfort thing. But with our stuff, we purposely didn't do that. We let the design speak rather than the brand. And so I think that was really cool, because not everybody can own a Mona Lisa, right? But you could own a 500, you could own a 700. They were limited, but you could still get it. It was accessible art. And again, that's what I like. I can look around here and the world is my gallery. It's pretty amazing. You know, this guy pair at 700s right there. That's incredible. There was another kid going by in 550s.
Anywhere you look, you probably see your
something
shoes.
I did.
Especially in a place like this.
Oh God, yeah, this is the sneaker con schedule.
How does it feel like you walk around, you see these tables, and you probably see like 3, 4, 10 pairs of your shoes. Like people are collecting.
I know. I tell them, I said, oh, I really like those Yeezys. They're like, yeah, they're really cool. I said, yeah, aren't they? No, I don't tell them or anything unless they, you know, the hardcore people know who I am. But a lot of those reseller kids, they're like, oh yeah, thanks for looking at my table. I'm like,
are you gonna buy any? Yeah.
I think I got a few of them already.
Yeah, you got the ones that no one's ever seen before. Ones, yeah.
I mean, Wave Runner, that wasn't even really at retail, right? It just showed up on the website. They sold out in 20 minutes. You know, the 450, for example, one of the last ones that we did together with Adidas, that thing sold out in 47 seconds. No advertising, no retail presence. And then it would have been 30 seconds, but it bogged down Adidas server so much that it ate into 15 seconds more for the selling out.
It's like design and influence.
Yeah, it's crazy, you know? And together, I think he and I were this perfect matching of the yin and yang of how we work together and created. You know, it's the Tinker and Jordan. We were the modern Tinker and Jordan.
Your relationship and working relationship with Ye, was it anything that you learned from that kind of collaboration that you've took forward? Obviously, you were an established designer at that point, but did you learn anything from kind of that work relationship?
I think it was a different way of working. You know, we created all of these different styles, and we may not have had the intention of producing them all, but what we were doing was very different in the process. In the normal process, guy just bought the Red Octobers. The normal process is, like you said, you get a brief, somebody goes somewhere, formulates it with marketing, or they do some focus groups, they come up with this brief, and then they give it to the designer, and you kind of sit, talk about it with them, and you start sketching. You do 4 sketches, you narrow it down to 2 and down to 1. With him, I would bring 20 sketches. He'd just say, he'd have an idea, and then I would just go off and sketch. Or I would have an idea. I'd see a sci-fi movie I liked and be inspired and just design a shoe. Like, what would the character wear? Tron, you know, what would they wear for Tron? And I would do 20 to 30 sketches, and I'd lay them on the table. He'd like, let's make them all. And Adidas would freak out, like, no, this isn't, you know, we need to make 2 to the 1. And he's like, make 200. Right. And so I became... And again, that's where we're kind of this perfect pairing. He was creatively insatiable, and I've been described in my past, like at Reebok, of, you know, being almost unmanageable, of creatively explosive. Right. And I would come with 20 sketches every time. And the Adidas kids who were supposed to be helping me would come with 2 to 4. And Ye would be like, what's this? You know, and lay out Stevens. And he'd be like, oh, you know. Then they told me, can you throttle it back and only bring 2 to 4? You're making us look bad. And I'm like, I'm not here to make you look good. You're here to make yourself look good. Step it up to my level. I said, sure, I'll do that. So the next week I brought 50, right?
That's incredible.
And he was happy as could be. And then we would make them. But to get back to your original point of your question, the process was we would make all of these samples and think about what I said and call it a sample. And what we were doing, and it took me a couple weeks to figure out how his brain was working and that it was music. We were creating product much like he does music.
Right.
So we were taking samples and we would take bits and pieces of it, mash it up, mix it, and create a track, which became the sneaker. Right? So all of these things, Adidas looked at it as their normal process of wasting making samples, but we were creating an archive of various samples. So like this shoe may have had this collar that was a guitar riff, essentially. We made this other one that had a tip and an outsole that was now a drum beat. And then we would take those 3 or 4, would kind of mix it up, mash it up, and out of it would come something you'd never seen before. Just like when he would do a music sample, you know, you'd hear something that was like, oh, I think that's a Donna Summer song. But then he'd mix it up and create something you never heard before, but that was an ingredient of it.
Right.
And that process was completely different than the normal one within the industry. So I kind of still use it became another tool in my toolbox. So I use that process when I create and ask people to do designs like, do this, do that. Let's take this, let's bring that. So I think that's what you have to think of, that you're building a sample archive.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what he was doing.
That's a
We were
really cool
sampling.
analogy because he's known in it musically for his samples.
Yeah.
And in footwear it was the same thing.
Yeah, it was so different. And, you know, other people couldn't handle it or didn't understand it. Like, why the fuck am I doing it this way?
Yeah.
You know? And whereas I sat back and I like to learn something new every day, I was like, well, this isn't the normal process. This isn't the way I've done it, but let's see what happens.
Right.
And I think that was important, of having that open mind to this new process, this new way. You never know what the future holds. You never know where you'll end up. Yeah, if you told me 20 years ago you're going to be working with the top musical artist in the world creating sneakers for the fashion/sport world, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I do Olympic spikes so people can win gold medals. That's what I do. You know, I'm not doing that. But, you know, we changed the game, broke the rules, and created all new categories of product. So it's been great. And, you know, I look with fondness to my time with him, in spite of how it ended. It was 8.5 years of magic, you know. But sometimes, you know, people need to help themselves. You can't help them as much as you try. So they talk about sell-through, right? You know, sell-through is a percentage of what went out in the first launch. There's no such thing as sell-through with us. It was sell out every time. It was a completely different thing than the industry was known to operate. So we changed everything. That's what was amazing. It wasn't just we changed the product, we changed the retail space, we changed how things are sold. We changed the time frame in which things were done. We shifted the whole mindset to replenishing or reissuing, and you know, everybody's like, more 750s, more 750s, and he's like, I don't want to do another 750. And so I was constantly designing new 750s. He would get so pissed off at me.
So
Stop
that's
it,
why
bro.
they never came. I was wondering why they just kind of stopped. I was like, I really like the 750. Yeah.
It was funny. Every week I would bring at least 5 750 concepts, and he'd get so mad at me. Stop it, bro. You know I don't want to do another one. I said, well, I think it's such a cool shoe. He goes, no, stop. I said, I can't help it. Sometimes I do it just to get him pissed off.
That's what.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember the 750 that came out with the gray suede upper and like the gum outsole that glowed in the dark. I'm like, I didn't know gum could glow green. Like that was just a material thing that for me was like wild. Or like, I mean, there's so many different things, but
And that was the other thing too, would do the dual releases of a 350. Some will glow in the dark, some weren't, some were reflective, some weren't.
That was on purpose.
And you didn't know what you were getting. Yeah.
because as someone just from the outside looking in, I was like, so were they not able to manufacture all of them? Was that, I never knew the answer, but that was the plan.
Yeah, it was just discovery.
I love that. So the tooling for that, what was tooling for that? Like what was like built, like designing the midsole and like throwing the boost in there? Like what was the sampling process like for that?
It was really funny because Adidas